The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Cooper Flagg is officially a Dallas Maverick. The Mavs drafting Cooper Flagg was exactly what Mavericks fans needed. It was boring. Boring. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. Nothing was interesting about it. It just
boring as in nothing caught us off.
Hold on. It came and went exactly as it should have. It went through. He was the number one pick from the very beginning. As soon as they got the number one pick, there was talks about, well, should they go get Giannis? Well, should they go do this? Or should they go, is Nico Harris going to do this? Oh, there's the PTSD and the frustration from Mavs fans, which I completely understand. And then it came through, and he walked across that stage. He is a Dallas Maverick. There was nothing different or that changed about it, and it was boring in the absolute best way that it possibly could have been.
Yeah, still super excited to where it's not. That's not what you're trying to say is like, hey, it's boring, we got Cooper Flagg. But nothing unexpected happened, right? Like, everything went as planned. The draft party in American Airlines Center, to where so many fans came out to that, and it looks like it was a blast. To just the whole experience, the countdown to Cooper Flagg, gets his name announced, and then interviews and different stuff. We get to see all the stuff that was like pre-made before the social post and everything, and it just kind of set in at that point. And then, they don't have to call him the kid from Duke anymore. So
that's right. Oh man, that's the thing we gained the most from tonight.
It was kind of just this like realization at the end of the night when Nico's just sitting there saying over and over again, just referencing Cooper. You're like, dang, he really is a Dallas Maverick, and it's pretty special.
Absolutely special. And man, there were so many things. Like as I was walking through the arena beforehand, I was just kind of getting a lay of the land. I've never been here before, and so I was walking through, and guess who walked right by me?
Ooh, John Shire.
No, Oscar Robertson.
Oh my God.
And you just I walked by and I just was like, oh my, literally slow motion. My head just went, oh my gosh, as I turned around seeing the big O. And then right after that, Cooper Flagg walks right by me, and you just feel the excitement about it. You feel what this meant to him and to his family and to his mom, who is a college basketball player and has helped him through so many things. And you just saw that family come together and be really excited to come to Dallas. And I think that's one of my main takeaways today, is that in everything that he talked about and said, obviously he's going to say the right thing. That's always what he's going to do. I think it'll take a couple years for him to come out of his shell, if he ever does, to actually answer some questions and show us his personality a little bit more, because he did not do that tonight, which you wouldn't expect. He's very well trained and all that. But he's excited to be a Maverick. He's excited to play with these guys. He was excited to play with. He told us who was at the dinner, the pre-draft dinner. I asked him. I wanted to know who was at the pre-draft dinner, and that was the one question I got to ask him afterwards. And he said P.J. Washington was there, who we'll talk about a little bit later. Najee Marshall, Max Christie, and the inevitable Dwight Powell was also there at that dinner. And he talked about how excited he was to play with those guys and to hear what they had to say and learn from them and all that kind of stuff. And it was just great to hear that he's excited to be a Maverick.
There had to be 2 other guys, because Nico said 6 players took him out to dinner. So one of those
on today's show, Cooper Flagg lies to me,
or Nico Harrison. No, but it is cool. When Nico referenced that tonight in the post-draft presser, he was talking about, and I know this is kind of a trigger word for some Mavs fans, but he was talking about the culture that's built. And he was like, yeah, this is, I think people underestimate the culture that is being built here, and what it shows how strong the culture is, that this number one pick comes in, and even some of these vets that he plays the same position as, like a Najee and a PJ and stuff, they're like, hey, we want to take him out to dinner. Like, we want to get to know him. He's going to, we're excited to play with him. Nico says in the workout that Cooper Flagg had with the Mavericks when he was in Dallas, PJ Washington was at that workout, and Nico was talking to PJ about what it would be like to play with Cooper Flagg as they're both watching this workout in the facility last week. That's the it's a cool thing. It's not just a dinner. It doesn't sound like a team thing set out. It's like these teammates set it up themselves and like, we want to take him out. And I think that's why you saw the dinner separate, which makes a little bit more sense too.
There's a bunch of different ways that he said he was excited about being a Dallas Maverick, but my favorite one. So this is how it all kind of worked out. He got his name called, and it is wild watching these guys get their name called because they're all sitting at these tables in the middle of the floor, and one by one they just leave. Like Cooper Flagg really only sat on the draft room floor for like 5 minutes, like the 5 minutes that they were on the clock. It's like how long he was out there. So he gets called.
3 hours.
He was out there literally 3.5 hours. Him and his family were sitting there. I could see him the whole time. And Cooper Flagg gets drafted. He walks up on the stage, hugs Adam Silver, then goes and does that interview quickly over there. We waited for about an hour. Then he comes back and does a press conference with a bunch of like national media and local from other different places and things like that. In that media session, he was asked this question, and I want to read it verbatim because it made no sense. Somebody said, Cooper, on behalf of all the internet conspiracy theorists who couldn't be here tonight, I have to ask, there are tons of rumors floating around that the NBA gave Dallas the pick to get you in exchange for Luka Doncic. Do you have any reaction to that? And Cooper Flagg, this was the first time I'd seen him like pushed off his spot with a question where he just did not expect it. He had no reaction, no answer to it. He just said, no, and just like sat there for a second, and then he said, I don't know what to say about that. He said, I have no insider information if that's what you're looking for. And then he said this, but I just feel blessed the way that it all worked out. And it's just another way that he said he's happy to be in Dallas, that he was blessed how it all worked out, because I'm with him, that I think this is the best scenario that he could have ended up with. This is the best crew that he could have ended up with under, Jason Kidd, with championship caliber players and Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson. And like, there's just a lot that he can learn from this crew, and there's not going to be as much pressure on him right away.
Yeah, that's he said in one of those interviews there with you guys in the Barclays of, hey, I want to be a sponge. Like, that's a number one overall pick who has a ceiling that's crazy, a generational talent that's saying, hey, I want to be a sponge to some other guy. Like, he doesn't have to say something like that. Like, I mean, he's a number one overall pick, but he wants to learn from these vets. Nico talked about it being such a positive thing, not just for veteran leadership, but like, you're going into this situation, and he referenced like, you could even win games when you have a bad night because you have such good teammates, and this team's a win now team and a really good team, that the wins and losses won't be so hinged on how he plays that night.
Yeah.
That there could be nights that he's going to have an off night and it's just not working, and they're not going to get beat by 30. Like, the other guys will step up and win, and you can still find other ways to win and stuff too. So I mean, we're both pretty positive on the fit. Other people don't view it that way, because for a lot of people, they look at top draft picks and they're like, all right, top draft picks have to go to a situation to where they just get a million shots and play 40 minutes. Well, and that's just not always the recipe for success for players.
How about like everybody that got drafted to the Nets? Oh, great fit. That's going to be a great fit. Great fit with what? Like, what do they have? What do they have to fit with? Like, who are you fitting Nolan Traore with, right? Or Igor Demin? I guess with each other. Like, you're fitting those guys together. But
such a great fit with Cam Thomas,
and just him specifically, and Nick Claxton, I guess.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right in the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. And if new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast.
The picks are in. What about good timing there, Casey? Yeah, right. What about good timing there? The Spurs, first round only. Y'all probably know this already. There'll be no second round pick. The Spurs traded that out. So, yeah. So we're going to focus only on picks 2 and 14. Everybody act surprised to pick Dylan Harper. I know you were just so shocked. Yeah, right. Right, just so
They telegraphed that for months. No drama there.
No drama. Well, let's go and start. Your thoughts. What is he going to bring to San Antonio?
I think a little bit of everything. I know it's kind of cliche to say that, but you're looking at a guy, and we talked about it earlier in this week, is that what Harper does so well with this team, and where he fits so well, is that his skill set brings out the best kind of in everybody else and their versatility, if you will. An example, Stephon Castle. Now with Dylan Harper here, we're going to see Castle's ability to play the three, Castle's ability to guard bigger players on the floor, and as a result expand kind of the lineups and differentiate the lineups a little bit. In addition to the fact that you want to talk about Harper more specifically though, what he brings is that you're looking at a guy who right now can slot right into that 2-guard spot if they elect to do so, can slot right in as the first guy off that bench if they elect to do so, and just a nice little bit of versatility in that backcourt that is going to go a long ways and fits very, very, very well with Victor Wembanyama, because as we've come to learn, he's such an anomaly, Victor is, that positionless basketball kind of goes to even a different level around him. And when you have a guy who can play both guard spots, and you, as a result, move him to that, like I said, to that 2, and allow Stephon Castle, amongst others, to expand on their skill sets, it's everything that we've been talking about coming to fruition. Well, hopefully. Fruition tonight for the Spurs, having them come to San Antonio.
You know, and the one thing that still concerns me, and I'm pretty sure it concerns a lot of y'all, the fit. This has been repeated over and over again. It got repeated again today after the pick came in. How are you going to slot Castle, now Harper, Fox? I mean, how do you think that's going to work out?
I think it will, like I said, I think it is going to work, but there are times where their flaws are going to show of just being young players, of what it is. Neither Castle or Harper right now are, barring the unforeseen of Castle taking a big leap, are really good catch and shoot, knockdown shooters. So I think as a result, that's where you're going to see lineup stagnated a little bit, see the 2 of them split up, and we haven't even mentioned De'Aaron Fox yet. Haven't even gotten to that part, who himself is not particularly a great 3-point shooter neither. So you will see, at least in theory, again, those guys stagnated a little bit, in my opinion, in the early on. It's a good way to keep up the normalcy of what was there last year with Fox and Castle, and as a result, blend Harper into the equation a little bit more. Because there is a little bit of a repetitiveness with the 2 of them, Castle and Harper at this point, early stages in their careers. There is, but that's not particularly a bad thing going down the road. You take that right now, you live with the consequences now in year 1 with what you got, years 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. It'll take some time. I know patience has been driven into everyone's skulls here at nauseum. I know it's been maddening, that word, but it's going to take time, but it's going to work.
Yeah, exactly. First thing, I love the offensiveness that he's going to bring. He can create his own shot. He's a great 2% shooter. 3% shooter, he's okay. He's not the greatest, but I think that will come in time. But talk about a guy that can open some space for Victor to operate, create his own shot, get defenses on their heels. I think he's going to fit fine. Dare I say, Casey, maybe a starter towards the end of the season?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of this will come down to comfort. I think a lot of this will come down, which I do think Harper has plenty of. Confidence has not been a strong suit of his. Lack of confidence. What I was going to, he's plenty confident in his ability to do that. We've come to learn that through this pre-draft process and interview process and everything we've learned along the way. I am confident right now with the way things are structured, set up. It's a good foundation right now, or maybe not foundation, kind of I guess blueprint maybe is a better word to kind of work with here, of how they get Harper into the equation, how they can take that next step with him, not only in however many games quarter into the season, but midway through the season, and I think by the end of the season, depending where they are in the standings, depending on where the season turns for better or for worse. Long story short, I think Harper will be a starter at some point in the season. Yeah.
I have no doubt that they're going to figure this out. You're going to see a little pitfalls along the way, but it'll sort itself out. What's going to be really interesting, Casey, though, if he does become a starter, who does he displace? Would it be Barnes? Would it be Vassell? Could it be that? That's something I'm keeping an eye on because I think he has that potential to push the coaching staff to this maybe second guessing. Like, wait a minute.
Somebody will
here.
say it.
Yeah. Wait a minute here. We got something here. Yeah. He's got to be out there. Kind of like we saw last year
with Castle.
Fans were screaming it. What are you doing, Spurs? Put him out there. Right. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see that with Harper.
And I think that's kind of the inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the inevitable. And I know they if we're saying that and we're seeing that, the people on the other side of these curtains.
Yep.
Right
they're seeing that for sure.
They're seeing that too.
Yeah.
And they're saying the same things too. They're going to come to a little bit of an impasse when that hits.
Yeah.
Again, that's not a bad problem to have. You work around it. It's the number 2 pick in the draft. A guy who's a foundational piece. That, if we're being honest, we probably weren't having this conversation 6 weeks ago.
No.
I don't think a lot of us saw the Spurs lucking into this again.
And here's the thing. During the pick, after the pick was made, I looked at you at the table and I said, you know what? Does Harper push this team on the borderline of getting out of the rebuild? I think he does, and I think they may cross that threshold as the season progresses. Because you told me they got their crew. It feels like they got
this
the crew.
This is it.
Yeah.
I feel like you look at the way things are set up right now. Everyone always talks about the big trade, the big move, things like that. That's always just the fun, sexy thought to talk about. But what is there really for the Spurs to do?
Right.
That's left.
Exactly.
That's kind of for the
big man, but I think that'll be addressed later.
But dramatic side.
Yeah, no.
This is it.
This is it.
This is your team that you're going to be working with going into this year, going into next year, going forward. Like, this is it. The only other, I guess, hypothetical now that the KD thing is passed was Giannis. But that's probably not happening either. Yeah. So this is what you're going with. This is what you're rocking with. It's a good thing to be rocking with. The Spurs are in a good spot for sure.
Absolutely. All right. So those are our thoughts about Harper. Shocker, everybody, I know. Ooh. But let's hear what Brian Wright had to say after the pick was in.
I think I've said this over the years that, like, positions in this day and age don't matter as much. We just saw playoffs where the team that won had a 6'5" wing that guarded the center, right? And you start to put offensive skill sets together and having multiple ball handlers, multiple people that can create, multiple people that can put pressure on the rim and make life easier for other players on the floor. I think that's an advantage, and I think we can do that for all 48 minutes. And so I'm not as concerned about positional overlap and trying to find skills and people that can put us in advantage situations and be able to play off that, and he can definitely do that. He's got a rare confidence with humility. He's a very down-to-earth, simple kid. Loves basketball, and after spending time with him throughout the process, you can tell that he knows he's a good basketball player, but he wants to be part of a group. He wants to be part of a team. He's willing to sacrifice. He's willing to work for it. And the more we spent time with him, the more we felt confident in that. And again, you talk to a lot of people around the kids, these young men, to try to get an understanding of who they are and what they're about, and he really confirmed that for us when we spent time with them.
The Utah Jazz got the guys they wanted. Are they right?
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz.
Ace Bailey, Walter Clayton Jr., those are your newest members of the Utah Jazz. No trades of no big moves, kind of as I expected. They all happened before draft day. Here's the show. We'll kind of look at the draft as a whole. We'll look at what's next for the Utah Jazz. We'll break down Clayton Jr. and we'll break down Ace Bailey. The big story of the night on today's show is the Jazz executed as they wanted, got who they wanted. This is Austin Ainge's direction as the new leader of this franchise, and you saw it. You saw it in the first pick, regardless of the noise, regardless of the workouts, regardless of what an agent might have wanted or not wanted. No one really knows. Immaterial to the Jazz. I told you this on Monday. I told you this yesterday, that the Jazz, if Ace Bailey was the guy that they thought was the right one to pick, regardless of all the noise, they were taking it. And they decided to take Ace Bailey over Trey Johnson, over Jeremiah Fears. That was the first decision. The second one that was clear, if talking to people throughout the week, they wanted Walter Clayton Jr. And they went and got him. They didn't sit at 21 with Jakovicius, with Clayton Jr., with other McNelly, with other guys on the board and said, we'll get one of them. They had one guy specifically they wanted, and they went and got him. And I think what you're seeing is you're seeing clear direction out of Austin Ainge's leadership with the Utah Jazz there. Like, immaterial to us what they might want. We're going to do what we want. And not passively letting the draft board come to them. Instead, using a second-round draft pick in a draft where this is probably the worst second round.
Top-heavy draft.
The worst second round that we have maybe ever seen in an NBA draft, because of the fact that you are have so many kids who went back to nil in college. Use one of those picks plus one of the future seconds, move up 3 spots, and go get the guy you want. So the first clear sign is a direction, an intention, and a control from Austin Ainge's leadership, giving the Jazz some direction. And now the question is he right? And there's 2 really clearly defined decisions here. The first decision is Ace Bailey over Trey Johnson. It's really pretty clearly what that decision was. So a lot of Jeremiah Fears talk. I have the feeling this was very clearly Ace Bailey versus Trey Johnson. And then the way the draft board was playing out, it was Walter Clayton Jr. or Jakovicius at Illinois, the 6'6" guard who went to Miami at 20. Pretty smart that the Jazz didn't sit back and wait for Clayton Jr. or Jakovicius to get to him. I was kind of doing the checkbook looking at it, and there was a chance that you were kind of certain that one of the 2 was going to get to you, but there was also a chance that they weren't. Like, you were 4 picks away, and it was 18, 19, 20, 21, and you're looking at the teams. I actually didn't think Miami would pull it because they have Jaime Jaquez, who's kind of similar, and then they pulled it at 20, and so you wouldn't have got either of them. All right, let's talk Ace Bailey. The measurables are undeniable. He's 6'8". He's got a 7-foot wingspan. He's got an 8'11" standing reach. Those are undeniable. And you go start running through the draft last night, you can't find many guys with the measurables. Right? It's why Taylor Hendricks went 9 also. You just can't find guys like that. The second one is he's a shot maker. Some of it's crazy. Now, he's one of those where I feel like you do really have to watch games. Because if you go watch a highlight video, you think he's going to be Tracy McGrady. But if you watch a game, that's not who he is. And then if you start looking at the end of the year, he was not a shot maker, he was a shot taker. And that's, I think, has to be addressed at some point. But we talked about it either yesterday or the day before on the show. In February and March, he goes 7 of 39 from 3. That's just shot taking. And shoots 40%. Something wore down during the season. In January, he shoots 49% from 3. In February, he shoots 19% from 3. In March, he shoots 17% from 3. Back to December, he shot 24% from 3. So he can get these shots off. He's thought of as a shot maker. Overall, 35% from 3, 46% overall. It's not bad, but let's be a little careful. The Jazz did meet with him in Chicago. So they have up close personal time. Austin Ainge yesterday talked about watching him at Iona. This was not a blind pick. The Jazz met with literally every single player that was taken in the first round at some point, either in a workout in Salt Lake City or in Chicago. So this was not, they've sat across the table from him. They've had the intel. They know who he is. This is not a blind pick. He has the possibility of being a really fabulous shot maker. This kid, college numbers or high school numbers and who he was out of high school, he's as big a recruit as you can have. In fact, when he left high school at 34 points a game, or was in his senior year in high school at 34 points a game and 16 rebounds and 4 assists and the Georgia Player of the Year, and it was Kansas, Kentucky, and then he goes to Rutgers, he's going to be the number 1 pick of the draft. And then Cooper Flagg reclassifies. A little background on him. His mom played at West Virginia. His dad played at Houston. So he's got a basketball background. They did split, but just a note on that, like not that it's any of our business or you're going to evaluate, but it is worth noting that on his visit to Rutgers, both of them attended at the same time. So it doesn't seem, okay, you got the point. His resume has every key moment you want. He's that big a recruit. Nike Hoop Summit, Jordan Brand Classic, McDonald's All-American, all those things. But let's get to the court and whether he's going to be. Right now, he's Michael Porter Jr. or Rashard Lewis. That's probably the likelihood of who he is. Somebody referenced another one to me, Andrew Wiggins, Golden State. Probably not Andrew Wiggins in his rookie years, but Andrew Wiggins, Golden State. The belief that he's going to be a pure isolation player who suddenly becomes, on the high end, now you're talking an all-star, is a little suspect. That's going to be the step. His handle is not great if you watch him. He's got some nice moves, 1 or 2 dribbles into things, but when he has to suddenly multiple dribble, second move to get going, it gets a little loose. The expectation on him should probably be Michael Porter Jr., Rashard Lewis, Andrew Wiggins, Golden State Warriors. Here's the biggest question. As of right now, every report on him is a lack of maturity, a little bit of a lack of focus. I thought his interviews last night were fun and you could see his personality, but I also thought like the overzealous confidence is a little bit kind of matches that. Right? When asked about Durant and Giannis, I got something for them too. Like, okay, fun. They got something for you, buddy. So, can he learn? Can he mature? Can he adapt? It's the same question you got in every 19-year-old kid. And this is what you have an organization for. This is why you have a director of player services. This is why you have a chef. This is why you have a nutritionist. This is why you have a strength and conditioning coach. This is why you have 13 coaches. This is why you have Will Hardy. This is your job as an organization, is to take a 6'9", right now 205-pound, incredible measurables, super level skill, help him mature, help him adapt to a crazy world of the NBA, help him get the right food, help him get the right strength, help him get the right mind. It's why you have Dr. Kimmons. And get him to be the best player he can be. Is it the right pick? The right pick on this one is doing what you want to do and being unmoved by the outside information. Whether he's going to be better than Trey Johnson, we'll see. I don't know. Like, I liked Trey Johnson an awful lot. I liked Ace Bailey at 5'2". I liked multiple players who I've been wrong on before too. So and what I think is probably irrelevant to that on this level. He is unquestionably the best pure shot maker, creator with his high release of anyone in this draft. Not the best shooter, but just shot maker out of almost nothing. It's incredible. Reverse pivot, fadeaway. I mean, crazy stuff. Mid-range. And a few other notes on him. Rutgers' defense was 9 points better when he was on the floor than off the floor. His ability, when I say shot taker maker, his ability to organize quickly and rise up is elite. That's what you're drafting. He'll get that shot off in the NBA. He's got a fadeaway to be able to get it. It's great. His touch around the basket, not a ton of floaters and things, but 61%. He does seem to be an off-the-ball scoring threat. Catch and shoot off picks, something Will Hardy loves. and had a pretty good block rate. Doesn't go to the rim a lot, doesn't play in a lot of contact, might be because of lack of strength, only sub 25 free throw rate, 16th percentile rim shot frequency, not great in that stuff. And there's a difference. What's interesting to me is he doesn't have a great handle, but he's got great touch, which leads me to believe he can get a great handle. I like it. It's a shot. I don't think it's a risk. 6'8" kids who can shoot play in the NBA. 6'8" kids who can shoot play in the NBA. I've never thought this was a risk. The question will be personal development and where he is on that process, because the skills are all there.
Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
Milwaukee in the national spotlight because of the Miz, Jacob Mizorowski.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Brewers have had guys come through over the years, over their 55-year history. Teddy Higuera, Dan Plesac, Juan Nieves, Ben Sheets. Then there were some that didn't pan out, like Jimmy Nelson, Nick Neugebauer, and I'm sure there's others as well. But nobody has made the impact quite like Jacob Mizorowski did at AmFam Field, packing the place. Now the Brewers say 42-7 in the stands, 42,700. Yeah, there were some empty seats. So maybe it was 42-7 season tickets, but certainly the Brewers and Pirates wouldn't have anything close to that on a Wednesday afternoon, wherever you played that game. So it was a buzz in that place. You could tell the moment that you walked from your car and were coming into the ballpark on Wednesday afternoon, that this was something special. And I've been there for playoff games before and all that. And that's a different kind of special. This was regular season special. It's like you're trying to find out, when's the next time the Miz is going to pitch? Because we're talking about a 6'7" pitcher who's throwing 100 miles an hour plus, intimidating guys, blowing it by guys, making guys look silly. And as a baseball fan, that's fun to watch. And the Brewers haven't had a guy like this. They haven't had a guy like this be as dominating as he's been through 3 starts so far. And he's going out there, and he's just been amazing. Throwing 100 miles an hour. There are Miz jerseys out there. And there were people who were just so excited to see this guy. And plus, with Paul Skeens on the other hand, pitching for the Pirates, who started the National League last year in the All-Star game, there was a special intrigue. You had 2 guys who were 23 drawing all this attention for this game. But I think if the Miz pitched next week, now he's going to be on the road. He's scheduled to pitch next Wednesday against the Mets. The Brewers haven't officially announced that, but it sounds like he's going to pitch against the Mets. That was a home game. I still think they would draw 35,000 fans, at least, maybe 40,000. It doesn't matter who was pitching on the other end. I think fans just want to come out and see this guy pitch, because we haven't had a guy, a true ace like this. Now, this is an ace. We're not talking about an ace. This is the kind of guy we're talking about right here. A guy who you could sink your teeth in. That, other teams have had him. Roger Clemens. I'm not comparing him to these guys, but you know what an ace is. An ace is a guy who is going to fill the stands. He's going to put seats in stands. People are going to get excited Oh, when is this guy going to pitch? Oh, I got to make sure I watch him on TV tonight. I got to make sure I'm there. The Brewers haven't had that guy. I mean, we all like Ben Sheets and some of these other guys, Juan Nieves and Teddy Higuera, but there never was someone like this guy right here where you just have to stop. He is the Brewers' Giannis. With the Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's a guy must-watch TV. When he's on, you stop and see what he's doing. The Brewers haven't had that type of guy. Jackson Chourio, yeah, he's a special player, but I'm talking about a pitcher that when he is on the mound, he is going to be a draw. You know, some of these other guys the Brewers, have in the rotation are all having terrific years, but this guy is something special. People are going to pay are going to want to come out and see him. This is going to be the summer of Miz in Milwaukee. All right. And I feel like I'm not jumping too far ahead here. I know he's only made 3 starts, but what I've seen of him, that's plenty enough for me. I've seen enough of him to say this guy could be great. This guy could be just fantastic. 5 scoreless innings, 2 hits, took him out after 74 pitches. And I thought, maybe he could have gone another inning. He might be on an innings count as well. The Brewers aren't telling us, but he's logged all these innings in the minors this year, and we'll see. These major league clubs do not want to overuse these guys, and I know old schoolers out there, and Adam McKelvey tells me this. Chuck, this isn't 1987 anymore, where pitchers are doing this, are throwing 330 innings. It's not that way anymore, and I get it. But these pitchers are on pitch counts, on innings counts, through their innings. And this is why guys get shut down. I don't even want to think that far ahead, but I feel like the Miz coming out after 74 pitches might have had something to do with it. I feel like Skeens, who went 4 innings and came out of that game, his team was down 4-0. I felt like they almost shut him down because they figured Miz is on the hill. We're not scoring. Not that we think we're going to lose this game, but why should we waste the innings and the pitch count on Paul Skeens? Save him for, live for another day with Paul Skeens. And with Miz, they got 5 innings out of him, 4-0 lead. I'm not saying that was insurmountable, but they got him out of there. 74 pitches. Murphy said after the game, he told Mizorowski, and not that the Miz seems like a pretty mild-mannered guy, low-key guy, doesn't get really excited about a lot of things. He said, remember, this isn't the Miz show. This is the Milwaukee Brewers and 8 guys behind. Yeah. And that's Murphy right there. Again, I don't think that had to be addressed at all, but this was all about the team. And I think everybody knows that. And this is why the Brewers are 9 games over the 500 mark. They don't have a lot of egos on this team. They don't have an O'Neal Cruz who's walking the first base or leaving a ball go under his glove and failing to chase it. They don't have guys like that. They got guys who go all out on this team. And this is why, again, they're not the most talented team. I know some of you are upset when I say that, and you should know this. They're not the most talented team, but they get the most every ounce out of it. And to have a guy like Jacob Mizorowski, man, after 55 years of watching Brewers baseball, we deserve something like this. We do. Now, you know what it is? It's up to Mark Attanasio over the next 6 years of this guy's locked-in career with the Milwaukee Brewers. We don't waste this talent. All right? Let's not waste this guy's ability on mediocre baseball teams. We got something special here with Mizorowski, and let's make sure we build around this guy. He's making a low salary. He's not really counting against their salary much, right? The Brewers they owe it to the fans. They owe it to the Milwaukee Brewers organization to build around this guy, and don't waste the next 6 years of his career throwing out guys you're finding in the phone book, which Attanasio is done. Yeah, he's reached in the phone book and said, get this guy or get this guy. Blue light specials. We don't need any of that anymore. So, yeah, my biggest fear is Attanasio would be wasting this guy's career and not building around him. We already depend too much on the pitching staff the way it is. But let's not take having a guy like this for granted.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right in the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
The Seahawks have been kicking the tires on veteran cornerbacks over the last couple of months. They finally have added to the group with a familiar name.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast.
They looked at Rasul Douglas. They looked at Shaquill Griffin. They were linked to Jalen Ramsey as a trade possibility. Now, Rob, we know who is going to be coming back to Seattle. Shaquill Griffin signing a one-year deal worth $3 million, could be up to $4 million with incentives. And this is the first thing that I'm going to say, and we talked about this a little bit a few weeks ago. I actually was kind of lukewarm on this happening at this point just because they had been talking to Griffin for a couple of months and it just didn't seem like a deal was coming together. But $3 million with up to $4 million in incentives, listen, that's telling me the Seahawks think that he has a chance to be a significant player in the secondary because Josh Jobe is making a third of that. And that doesn't mean there's not going to be an open competition between those two guys, but this seems like pretty darn good money for a player who has been in the free agent market this long. We know how many games Shaquill Griffin started. He's been a Pro Bowler before, very familiar with Seattle. I just think that price point, that is an indicator to me that the Seahawks, we'll see where the guaranteed money's at. That's going to be the real story. But that is an indicator to me that John Schneider, Mike McDonald, everybody involved in these decisions believes that Shaquill Griffin can come in and play a lot of snaps as the third corner for this team.
Yeah, I think that he can. I think that the evidence has been on tape, and it has been over the last 8 seasons in which Shaquill Griffin has been a quality player in the NFL. You know, as he said, I mean, we can quote all the numbers that you want. To me, the number that stands out is 82 games started over his career. The fact that he played in all 17 games a season ago, had a couple of interceptions. Statistically, it was arguably the best season that he's had since he left Seattle in the first place. He is just under 30 years old. And so this is a guy that, you know, he has played enough. He's seen it all. He is still a very reliable, durable player. He's a good open field tackler. He is instinctive and productive against the run. He is willing to fight through blocks. He can man up against bigger, taller receivers. He still has good speed, not necessarily the elite 4.3 speed that he had at one point, but still can run with receivers. I think that this is a quality addition to the Seahawks secondary. I didn't know the financial numbers here, or at least it was been reported to this point. But Corbin, when I watched him on tape, I saw a guy that I thought absolutely should be on an NFL roster at this point. And I think the Seahawks basically just kind of were surveying the field a little bit. I do believe that they would have had some interest on Jair Alexander. I do believe that they kept close attention to what was going on with Jalen Ramsey in Miami. And all the other cornerbacks that we've talked about, Rasul Douglas or whoever. I just think that Shaquill Griffin throw out the fact that he used to be with the Seattle Seahawks and just look at him as a player. This is a guy that should be on an NFL roster. And then you add in the fact that he's a former Seahawk and is, beloved in that room. They know who he is. They know he's a quality human being, takes care of himself. So again, I think that this is a move that makes an awful lot of sense. Maybe it is going to wind up being more expensive than perhaps we would anticipate for something this late in the process. But at the same time, I also think that this is a good player and deserves, the Seahawks had a concern at this position, and to get a player of this magnitude, frankly, at this point in the off season, I think makes an awful lot of sense.
And I don't know that this is going to be the last move that John Schneider makes, because at the end of the day, this is only going to cut a couple million off the salary cap. They've still got a lot of financial wiggle room to be able to go out and make a trade or sign another player like a Jadeveon Clowney here in the next few weeks. We'll see what they end up doing, but we know that John Schneider likes to be aggressive in this dead period. He likes to go out and continue looking for ways that he can improve his football team, and he's got a lot more financial flexibility than he's had at this point in a number of seasons. And when you look at Shaquill Griffin, we've talked about this quite a few times. When the first rumors circulated that there could be a reunion here, Shaquill Griffin, I thought, was on the verge of being out of the league a couple years ago. When he was with the Texans and the Panthers in 2023, he did not play well. His 2 years in Jacksonville, he was riddled with injuries. And when he did play, he didn't have any interceptions. The production was simply not there, and he wasn't tackling as well. He goes to Minnesota this past year, though, Rob, 41 tackles. He has 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups, and a 76.9 passer rating against, which is the second lowest he's had as an entire career. I believe it was his second season in Seattle that he had the best, and it was very close. So the argument I'm making here is that Shaquill Griffin is being that third corner in Minnesota. He got to play quite a few snaps as that rotational nickel dime add on the outside. He even played a few snaps in the slot. You got really good production from him as a tackler. You've got a couple of interceptions, which that has been something that's been hit and miss for him. Maybe the biggest issue in his entire career is he hasn't created enough turnovers consistently, but he's gotten his hands on the football a lot, had a couple pass breakups for Minnesota. I thought it was the best season that he had since his Pro Bowl year in 2019 for the Seahawks. You can make an argument even the last year he had in Seattle, even though he had the interceptions, he gave up a lot of touchdowns in 2020. And that was part of the reason Seahawks were not willing to match what the Jaguars paid for him. And that ended up being a good move. But I think at $3 million, a guy that's still, he's just going to be 30 years old next month. He still can move really well. We got to see him in the game against the Seahawks last year at Lumen Field, and he got his hands on a pass. I think that this, at worst, is going to give you the best competition that you could have got your hands on without giving up a draft pick. Maybe Jalen Ramsey is a superior player, but you'd have to give something up to get him. He's more expensive. Shaquill Griffin gives you a guy that can, at minimum, he's going to be able to push Josh Jobe, who you were excited about what you saw last year. But a lot of times guys that have emergent seasons out of nowhere like that, it's really hard to replicate that the following year. So you want to have at minimum somebody that can really push him. And if Shaquill Griffin ends up beating him out, that's going to be a good thing as well, because both these guys have 1 year on their current contracts. So Griffin's got a great opportunity here to be able to get playing time in a familiar setting, in a defense that I think he's going to fit in pretty well with, because he has been a willing tackler. There has been some physicality to his game, and he's got that confidence and that swagger that I think Mike McDonald really wants out of his cornerbacks. I think it is a solid fit for him. We'll see. I'm not predicting he will. I think that they have a chance potentially for him to win that job against Josh Jobe coming up in training camp.
No, I think there's a good chance of that. I think that, as you mentioned earlier, I think that the contract suggests that the Seahawks think that there's a good chance that. Look, I'm a big fan of Josh Jobe, so I think, and frankly, I'm excited about the upside that Nehemiah Pritchard has demonstrated as well. But at the same time, again, as you just said, when talking about Josh Jobe a moment ago, that sometimes you see players that play very well one season, and then they duplicate that when the league has an off season to really put you on tape and really figure out your deficiencies. You see an awful lot of players that flash and then are not consistently effective in the NFL as time goes on. That's one of the reasons why, again, Shaquill Griffin is as impressive as he is. And there's a lot of good quality journeyman players. We're going to be talking about some of those players here in a few minutes when we do our top 90 breakdown. But I just think that Shaquill Griffin, again, at the price point that at least is being reported, that it made an awful lot of sense. And I mentioned before the timing of it. And I think that, it is the off season. It is the dead season, so to speak. But it's also, you have obviously another, a month basically until training camp. That an NFL team is giving a player a month to basically mentally and physically prepare themselves for the rigors of training camp. If you are a player that's at least perceived to be on the outside looking in, you need that time to kind of build your body back up. So kudos to the Seahawks. If this is the move that they wanted to make, and obviously we've been talking about this for a while now, we knew that they were kicking the tires. Kudos to make the move now, rather than risk losing this player over the next month or so. And then again, giving the player a real chance to do something rather than sign him on the eve of training camp. It gets all kinds of buzz, but it doesn't actually put the player or the team in the best position to move forward.
Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
It's been a busy couple of days for Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks. They add Paul Mbia, the Giants center, and they also added Cole Rosario.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's start with Cole Rosario first. So Rosario is the reclassification guard 2026 for KU. That sounds like, by the way, he'll be joining within like a week, which that's great news, because that was something we kind of talked about, that like, okay, how much of an opportunity is he going to have to play with the team during the summer? Like, you think of Johnny Furphy, and he didn't join the team till like August. And yeah, Furphy ended up being a starter later in the season, but it took some injuries. It took some other players not playing well, and he, wasn't a starter at the beginning of the year. Well, sounds like Cole Rosario is going to be joining soon, so he'll have missed a little bit of time, but he'll have, I would think, plenty of time to establish himself as a possible rotation player for KU should everything kind of come together. So that's huge for his potential early playing time and kind of getting in that Bill Self circle of trust. As far as the ceiling role, what it looks like for Cole Rosario versus the floor role, we'll do that with Mbia too. For Rosario, I think the ceiling role looks like, he's one of the best three-point shooters on the team. He's athletic, he hustles, he gets rebounds, right? And that he is part of the 8 most trusted guys on the Bill Self team. And when the rotation gets cut down in bigger games or later in the season, he's part of that rotation still. And he's, making a big impact in doing those things specifically for KU. I think the floor, what it looks like in the realistic worst case scenario, so to speak, is that he's just not part of the rotation. And that could be because Bill Self either plays a smaller rotation that just has like 7 guys, or it could be from a standpoint of like, what if Jamari McDowell, just having more experience, beats him out? Or, what if KU opts to, like, if you figure your starting 5 plus one of the bench guards plus your backup big and then your 8th man, what if the 8th man ends up being they just want to steer into even more athleticism and having another wing who can play the 3-4, and they end up going with Samis Calderon in that role. And so Rosario ends up being just kind of a fringe rotation player where he's playing spot minutes in year 1. That would be the, I think, floor situation there for Rosario. But either way, I do like his future with KU, that's to say the least. My guess on the role personally is that, I think you're looking at a competition between like Rosario, Calderon, and some of these other guys. I am right now expecting Rosario to be a rotation player for KU. Again, I have a hard time seeing him jump ahead of some of those guys, maybe in the top 7 when you're looking at, the really 4 main guards that you have with Council, Dawson, Jackson, and Peterson. When you add in Trey White, when you add in the 2 bigs, Floyd Badunga, and then whoever the backup big, whether it's Paul Mbia or Bryson Tiller, we'll get to that in our second segment here. But that's 7 guys. Like, it's hard to see him jumping over El Marco or jumping over Jaden Dawson. I guess it is possible. Like, Rosario's a really good athlete, and if he does end up being the best 3-point shooter on the team, maybe that is worth something, right? But there is room for an 8-man rotation and him being that 8th guy. So, like, that's kind of where I view it right now, that, okay, maybe Calderon has a leg up right now because he's been practicing with the team. But given the combination of this team needs shooting with the fact that he is going to be joining soon, that he's still going to have an opportunity to play and get acclimated with the team. I view that as something where, like, right now, I would be expecting him to be kind of at that back end of the rotation. But what players that, are on the team that could be impacted by that? Well, okay, again, I think he's directly in competition with Noah Shelby, Jamari McDowell, and Samis Calderon for kind of that final rotation spot. Now, maybe you can make an argument that, the eighth man in the rotation could end up just being another big. What if seventh and eighth men are both bigs with Mbia and Tiller, right? And then at that point, it's a different conversation. But if we are looking at that next guard up, right, that's the biggest competition I think he has to clear right now. Shelby and McDowell. And McDowell has a little more experience, right? Coming off the redshirt year, this will be his third season at Kansas. When you look at Rosario, probably has a little more juice and maybe more three-point potential than McDowell. But again, how much is that experience worth as far as Noah Shelby is concerned? That's a player who, mostly brings three-point shooting to the table, and that'll be interesting to see if Rosario can be a better three-point shooter than him. I would think the other parts of the game, the all-around pieces of the game, are going to be better for Rosario than they are for Shelby. But yeah, that's kind of the big competition there. But again, the Samis Calderon part of this becomes very interesting, and you just wonder how much of who plays more, Samis Calderon or Cole Rosario, how much does that come down to which player is better versus which fits better? Going back to the idea that, okay, I think Rosario becomes a better fit because you need three-point shooting on this team, but maybe your identity is just to be the most athletic, long team possible, and then maybe Samis Calderon fits into that as much as possible. So what I find interesting is what fuels the other in that situation, right? Are you playing, like, is the fact that if Cole Rosario looks better in the offseason than Samis Calderon, does that turn into the style that you play where you have the extra three-point shooter versus if Calderon is the one that outplays him, then do you decide to steer into that all the way through? I think that'll be kind of the most interesting of the competitions, is just who's better between Calderon and Rosario. And yes, both players can play the three, so there is a little bit of overlap there, but it's interesting because Calderon's more of like a 3-4, whereas Rosario is probably more of a 2-3. So they're slightly different players, but whichever one wins out, that kind of steers the way that Bill Self has to use the rotation, has to use the roster, has to use other minutes, right? Because if Samis Calderon is the one that wins out, okay, now you don't have to play Trey White as many minutes at the 4 because you have Samis Calderon who can come in and play some 4 minutes, versus if Cole Rosario wins out, maybe that means Trey White's playing even more minutes at the 4, so you can play more of your guards 1 through 3. And really that would mean that you're going to have a lot of a essentially combo guard at the 3 at that point, right? Because if Rosario wins out in that situation, you're talking about Dawson, who's a 2-3, Rosario, who's a 2-3, Council and El Marco, who are kind of 1-2s, and Peterson, who's kind of just a unicorn and can do anything, as being guys who would be playing 1 through 3 for this team, right? It wouldn't be like a true wing at the 3 necessarily. So it'll be very interesting who wins between kind of that competition to determine kind of style of play as well for KU. And I guess, again, like if you want to talk just pure potential, if you want to talk athleticism and three-point shooting, is there any world where like Cole Rosario could beat out like Jaden Dawson if you're just looking at the prototype of, okay, both players are 2-3s, both players are expected to be some of the better three-point shooters on the team? Does Rosario have more bounce than Dawson? Dawson's got a good amount of bounce. But I guess in a world where Cole Rosario is a late riser, like is that Johnny Furphy type of player, if he is Christian Brown as a freshman, right? Those guys ended up surprising people with how big their roles would end up being. Maybe even more so Christian Brown in what that first year was. And then at that point, if you're getting to that level, you are talking about somebody you were expecting to play big minutes has to get docked because it's, you don't just get to create extra minutes. So maybe that would be the one that I'm looking at. I don't think that's a likely scenario.